Okay, as Mr. Bellman said, a significant amount of work by our finance committee members, as well as Mrs. Lenhart and her team in the business office for sure. As you know, the development of the budget is almost a year-long process. So as soon as we come back to school in the beginning of a new year, the process begins with our budget managers, principals, directors, and so on, working on their preliminary requests. It goes to the finance committee, usually about the January meeting or so, December, January, and then we work through a process with public meeting updates and that sort of thing to get to this tentative budget adoption here on March 9th, with a final budget adoption about 2 months from now. And for the benefit of the public and people who might watch our presentation down the road, it is very rare for there to be significant changes between March and May when the final adoption happens. This is essentially what the budget will look like, is what you'll hear tonight. As always, we tried to go through this process using the whole child as our framework and our philosophical foundation. One of the key tenets of the whole child approach is that how we use our resources aligns to those areas of focus. And just briefly, I want to mention a few things contained in the budget that reflect our whole child tenets. And the ones we talk about with kids are the healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. However, sustainable is also sort of a wraparound tenet of the whole child as well. So just a couple of things that are in the budget. So this budget does reflect a 9% increase in anticipated health benefit costs for our staff. It addresses both routine and one-time maintenance projects through our operating budget, provides funding for additional safety training of our bus drivers and our bus monitors, provides for upgrades to the middle school APR, performance space, budgets for replacement of the roof at the Transportation Buildings and Grounds building, increases funds for what has now become a huge topic around the state in cybersecurity preparation and making sure our systems are as secure as possible, provides funding for additional security, a position that's in our Buildings and Grounds and Technology departments that we have in place already, continues to fund K through 6 field trips at the district's expense, as well as our capstone experiences, honors our community's desire to have small neighborhood schools with the full complement of resources that requires, provides competitive salary and benefits and great working conditions, allowing us to hire the best of the best, as you see in our agendas each May as we come through our new hires, funds necessary curriculum work, including an update to our math program for the first time in 7 or 8 years, supports regular investment that happens on an annual basis in our student technology programs, manages our enrollment decline by maintaining staff, provides funds for the unknown impact of ongoing negotiations with the WTEA, more than triples the deposit into capital reserves, which helps us be in a sustainable position for long-term needs, and renews the district's transportation contract beneath the amount allowable by state law. With that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Lenhart, who goes through the much more important pieces that everybody's waiting for.
Thank you, Dr. Mingle. So what are the efforts by the district to control expenses? They include, but are not limited to, sharing staff between schools, efficient transportation routing. We have 2 tiers within our district. We also partner Watchung Hills as the first tier. So that helps the vendor maintain costs, which of course then help us. The development of special education programs in-house. Our out-of-district projection for 2020-21 is the lowest I've ever seen in my years in the field. Participation in an energy awareness and monitoring program. Performance of construction projects by district maintenance staff. The number of purchase orders for which we're paying outside contractors to do small jobs has been greatly reduced over the years. And the use of state funds through the passage of the referendum project. As a reminder, for the $6.6 million worth of work that the district recently undertook, 7 projects, we're only paying 4.2, and the state's giving us, it's about 4.4, excuse me, and the state's paying about 2.2, so we're paying 66 cents on the dollar. Significant revenue sources. We had a couple of years ago gone out for banking and increased our district, the interest that we're earning on our district's deposits. The money that sat in the bank over this year from the proceeds of the bond have also helped this year's interest revenue. We have revenue based on our before and after care provider, district tuition monies from our preschool program, federal funds for technology purchasing. If you've ever heard from this is the E-rate program. We get about 20% back on certain technology expenses. We provide transportation services for neighboring districts. And just came up today, this year we do not have any students attending from other districts, but it looks like next year we will, so we'll have some incoming tuition. And this year there was a state aid increase of a little over $257,000. That represented a 15% increase in our state aid. As you can see, although our state aid is increasing, we're not yet back to where we were in the famous year that we all got slammed with state aid cuts. In reviewing this chart earlier today, I thought that it was interesting to note that over the last 7 years that are listed here, our average general fund tax levy increase is 1.4%, which is something that the district and the board should be proud of. So just this is a little bit of a background to how school budgets work. So this board, in the incarnation that it was at that time, approved a $44 million budget. July 1st, that budget doesn't really go into effect because it's mitigated by a couple of different categories, and it's important for the board and the public to understand this. So when you have work that is based on a purchase order from 1819, it and its money come over into the following year. So that doesn't affect the tax levy, but it affects the total budget bottom line. You also can bring over some very restricted carryover funds. There's some money that the district gets based on the prior year expenses. The money doesn't come in till the summer. So every year in the fall, we increase the budget a little bit, gives us a little leeway. It's based on extraordinary aid and non-public transportation. And additional deposits from capital and maintenance reserves. Some of the work we did this year didn't affect the tax levy, but it came from some of our reserves. So although the original budget was $44 million, the budget that's really live is $45.1. The 2021 budget is almost $49 million, and that seems like a big increase, but it is really misleading. We're just talking about the general fund at this point. Because of the way that we have to get money out of capital reserve to pay our portion of the debt, it increases the general fund expense line. So $4.3 million of that 48.9 is really just a paper transfer to get the money out of capital reserve and into Fund 40 for the debt service payment. So that's why those numbers look so askew this year. Where does our money go? I don't think it would surprise anybody that our money goes to salary and benefits. First of all, our largest asset are our staff. Second of all, benefits is a pot of funds that the state requires us to allocate in addition to health benefits, which is large. It's also the district share of Social Security, which is 7.65 on non-certificated staff. It's also workman's comp. It's not just things that directly benefit individual employees, it's what benefits our employees as a whole. What are the sources of our increases? The contractual salaries account for almost $600,000 of our increase, and the tax levy increase is only $510,000. Now that's mitigated a little, don't forget, because we got a little bit of state aid, right? But those are the biggest buckets of the changes in the budget for 2021. The tax levy summary, as mentioned, it's $510,000 increase, which is 1.24. It equates to $23.47 per 100,000 of assessed value. In Warren, the average residential home is assessed at $743,000, so the increase would be about $175 a year. This just shows, so we used to have debt service tax levy, now we just have general fund, and this just shows an extraordinarily moderate, very moderate increase over the last few years. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay.